Hey folks, how's it going today? Thank you very much for tuning into this week's Wounded by War broadcast. And my name is Kevin Flike, the creator of the Facebook page and the website www.woundedbywar.com. We've covered a broad range of topics. I talked about the 5 most important lessons that I learned during my recovery as a combat wounded Green Beret. And today I'd like to talk about a topic that is very personal to me, one that I really don't talk a lot about. And I talk a lot about my recovery. I've been very candid about it. I want to talk about the topic of painkillers and addiction. Whenever people ask me about this, or I even broach the topic with anybody, I always say there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that you can beat the addiction. The bad news is that you're probably going to have to go through hell to do it. And so just to catch some people up who haven't maybe been following the story, at the end of September in 2011, I got shot in my stomach in Afghanistan, and immediately my medics went to work on me. They were so focused on saving my life that they forgot to give me my meds. And so I reminded them with some 4-letter words, very vigorously, that they needed to give me my meds right now. So they took them out of my right pocket where my team kept our pain meds, and they taped a fentanyl lollipop to my finger and told me to suck on it while they worked on my gunshot wound. And within a few minutes, that thing kicked right in and was doing its job. And that was my first experience with having to use some very hot, potent and high-level narcotics to deal with the pain from my injuries and my surgeries. And when I was in Brooke Army Medical in San Antonio, Texas, a couple weeks after I had gotten shot, the amount of pain that I was in was excruciating. I was getting a Dilaudid shot every 2 hours. Now, Dilaudid is a higher level of morphine, so you can imagine just how potent this drug is. And when I was released from the hospital, I was prescribed 12 Percocets and 2 extended release Oxycontin. And so that's just to give you an idea of where I had to go, the level of pills that I was on to where I had to get to get to zero. Now, unbeknownst to me, the entire time that I was in the hospital for a little bit over 3 weeks, my wife, who's a nurse, who's been my rock through all of this, she had been coming up with a plan to get me off of my pain meds. It was a taper program. And so the first day that I was out, she laid down the law with me, and she gave me the plan. And basically what it was that each week on Saturday, I would cut my meds down by, it didn't even matter if it was a fraction of a pill. As long as we were pushing towards the goal of reducing my dosage for the week, then it was successful. And so I would do it on Saturday. I'd have all day Saturday and Sunday to have my body just feel normal, get used to it, go back to physical therapy on Monday, and push it hard again. And so this was tough. It was brutal some weeks to do the cut down. But by about 3 months into it, I had gotten off of my painkillers, mostly because I couldn't listen to my wife nag at me anymore. But the week that I got off of them was brutal. The withdrawals are real. I was sweating, I was throwing up, I had the chills. It was terrible. But once that first week had passed, I've experienced this clarity that I hadn't had in the past 3 months, and I just felt incredible. I was so happy that my wife really had me on that program and got me off. Now, come February, I was faced with another surgery. I had to have an experimental surgery to kind of gain some usage back in my left leg because it was paralyzed from the gunshot wound. Now, I was terrified. I was at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, the best place in the world. I was terrified. Not because of the surgical procedure, but because I knew I'd have to go back on pain meds. And I just remembered how brutal it was to get off of those pain meds, to cut back every week, to go through the withdrawals. And I also remember just how much that they controlled my emotions, my thoughts, and my life. I was able to tell time by my pain meds because my body would start to get sick every couple of hours. So I would know that 2 or 3 hours had passed because I hadn't had a dosage. So I was terrified to go back on these meds. But I elected to take the surgery because I just couldn't think for the rest of my life that there was an opportunity for me to be able to walk and run again, and I didn't take it. But when I woke up from it, I was in pain. It was just like the worst pain I had been. It was even worse than when I had gotten shot. And I had to go back on meds again. When I was released from the hospital that time, I had was given 12 Dilaudid pills a day. Remember, those are more potent than morphine, and 12 Percocets a day. So now that's where I have to go to get back down to zero. 24 pills a day, and I needed them. They were all prescribed, and it wasn't like I was overprescribed. And so we tried doing the taper program again, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it was working. It wasn't working as well. It was a lot harder to get off of the pills the second time around because I was in intense amounts of pain, and the reality of the situation, the gravity of it sunk in. This was the rest of my life. I was a changed man. I was not going to be the same person that I was. And so, I probably was holding on to the pills a little bit to deal with that reality. And so I could always get it down, after months of the taper, I was able to get it down to 2 or 3 pills a day, sometimes 1. But it was impossible to get to zero. I couldn't do it. And so this all started in February, and by August, my wife had really kind of had enough with everything. If people have met my wife, she's a tough woman. She's stuck with me through everything, and she has always told me what I needed to hear, not what I want to hear. And in a case of addiction, that is the most important thing you can do with loved ones. I mean, I'm sure it was brutal for her to see me in pain and to see me struggle, but she told it to me like it was. And she finally sat me down and said, is this it? Is this the rest of your life? Are you going to take pills for the rest of your life? And I would always say, well, it's only 1 or 2 pills a day. I just need it to take the edge off. I'm a wounded veteran. And she would always come back with, well, yeah, it's 1 or 2 pills a day now. And then next year it's 2 or 3 pills. And then the year after that it's 3 or 4 pills. And then you're addicted to drugs. And I was so angry when she told me that. My wife and I during our recovery had a lot of moments like that where I was just furious with what she said to me. But it was what I needed to hear. She told it to me like it was. She didn't sugarcoat anything or hold it back to me. And it got me thinking, is this the rest of my life? Is this what I'm going to do the rest of my life? Am I going to take pills the rest of my life? Is this going to be a way to honor your brothers and sisters who didn't have this second chance at life? Is this going to be a way for me to honor those people who believe in me and help me through this recovery? Because I knew that I couldn't live the life that I wanted to taking pills. I had ambitions. I had to keep pushing forward. I wanted to go to graduate school. And I knew that I couldn't do the exams that I needed to do on pills. I couldn't do the studying. I couldn't go to grad school taking pills on a consistent basis like this. And so in August, I said to myself, this is it. Once this prescription is done, you're done. You're not taking pills anymore. And I put the date on the calendar that I figured I'd run out, and I remember taking that last pill out of the drawer. I can remember vividly walking over to the medicine cabinet, taking the pill out, and swallowing it. And waking up the next day and feeling terrible because I told myself that was it. I'm done. And I started studying for my GREs that day. Studying for your GREs is hard enough. Learning how to do math and stuff like that again. But having to do it while you're going through painkiller withdrawal is nearly impossible. I took a practice test that day. I scored a 16% on it. I started to think maybe I shouldn't go into grad school at all. But I put my head down and kept with it. I mean, it was brutal. Every second was brutal for almost a year. I could barely focus. I was in pain all the time. I thought about taking pills every single day. Not a day went by for over a year that I didn't think about taking those painkillers. When I would walk through my compound at the Army base for my company, the smell of saline would just send shivers down my spine because in San Antonio they used to mix my Dilaudid with saline and shoot it in and would instantly hit the bloodstream, and just this warm rush would come over my body. So whenever I would smell saline, that same rush would quickly go through my body. And thought about this stuff every day. I was depressed because I was in pain and I wasn't happy. And I wondered if I would ever be happy again like I was when I was taking painkillers, because they work. They took my pain away and they made me feel better. They made me feel warmer inside. But I was able to, with the help of my wife and so many others, continue to stay off of those. And so this is what I did to help myself out during this time period. The first thing that I did, and the first thing that you should do if in any type of trouble, is I asked for help. I went and saw the group psychologists, and they were great. They talked to me, they let me complain, they handled the situation perfectly with me and helped me work through things. I was going through a lot with my deployments, with being injured, the stress of me reintegrating with my wife, and just being in pain every day is mind-boggling. I thought I was going to go crazy at certain points. And then my wife and I got marriage counseling also to work through everything that we were going through. Because we're just too stubborn to give up on each other. We're two firstborn children. We always think we're both in charge and have the right answers. And so we didn't go at this situation alone. We sought help from other people. And it was instrumental in making sure that during that year, that one of the probably the most crucial periods of my recovery, I was able to stay off painkillers. And I also sought out some alternatives. I did acupuncture. I did yoga. I practiced meditation every day. And so I learned to deal with my chronic pain that I've been in every day since I'd gotten shot almost 5 years ago. But I've just learned to live with it. Because there's so many times I had to ask myself, do you want it in life or not? My answer was always yes, and I knew that I couldn't do it taking pills on a consistent basis. And so I don't want people to think I'm being preachy here, because I know that everybody has a different situation, they have different things going on in their lives, and their problems are different than mine. But I also know that a lot of my brothers and sisters in arms are suffering right now from addiction to painkillers or alcohol or other things. And I know that there is an epidemic, a crisis in this country right now of people who are facing this. And so I want to share my story with you just to let you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And this light, it burns brighter than you can even imagine. I mean, I started out at one end of the tunnel and I'm at the other end right now. And it was hell going through the middle of that thing. But it was so much worth it for me to be there. My marriage is great with my wife right now. We have 2 beautiful daughters. I just graduated from Harvard and MIT, and I'm going to start working in the financial industry in Boston next month. And I'm not even saying that pills, I'm not even anti-pills, because I needed a lot of those pills in the initial phases of my recovery. But I just want to let people know that there's other alternatives, there's other ways. You just have to seek help. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in here today. And I really hope that this was helpful for people to show you that, like I said, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. And I just want to try to bare my soul throughout all of these things to help as many people as I can. Right now, my wife and I are working on a series, hopefully a 5-part series, in which I'll talk about how difficult my transition from the military to the civilian world has been for me. Now, if you want to learn more about the story, please go to www.woundedbywar.com. You can like us on Facebook, and please share this with people who, especially this message will hit home with them. Thank you everybody so much for all of your support. Everybody's been great, and everything that I get from you people, my fans, my followers, it just makes me dig deeper and makes me want to push harder and try to inspire as many people as I can. So thank you. Have a great day.